Trust is such a cornerstone to the therapeutic experience. Yet, as therapists, how often are we reflecting upon that trust in the here and now experience with our clients? How does one encourage clients, particularly those who have been marginalized and hurt, to safely trust the therapeutic process? Welcome to People of Color in Psychology, the show that explores mental health topics specific to culture, diversity, and communities of color. I am your host, Jack Zen. Today, we're honored to have India Bradley join us. India is a licensed clinical social worker in private practice in Fort Worth, Texas. She specializes in evidence-based therapies such as brain spotting, CBT, DBT, and mindfulness. Her population of focus include high-achieving professionals, young adults, and those navigating significant life transitions. India also treats anxiety and depression amongst interpersonal challenges from relationships. Essentially, India's mission is to provide a nurturing environment where individuals can explore their thoughts, feelings, and aspirations in a safe and supportive setting, because she knows that trusting and seeking help can be very difficult, especially amongst people of color. Her message and key point to make is that we don't need to suffer in silence. As a Black licensed clinical social worker, India will be discussing how therapists can incrementally encourage clients of color to safely trust in the therapeutic space. India, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, I'm really glad we are doing this recording in Black History Month, because we really do need to talk about the Black therapists that are doing this type of work, and in many ways encouraging clients of color, Black clients, to also feel this is a safe place. It's not just with Black clients, but many clients of color, many marginalized clients who may otherwise think therapy is not quite for me.
Yes,
So,
yes.
yeah. So this is an important topic. You're talking about for clients of color who are even, hesitant or show up in therapy, that trust is such a sticky subject. Can you tell me a little bit more about that, what you have seen?
What I've seen is it's such a hard thing to open up to sometimes, especially when you've been hurt so much in the past, whether it's by people you trusted, relationships, or people we should have been able to trust, whether that was another provider, whether it was a therapist, or even a medical doctor, where you didn't feel seen or didn't feel heard. And even though I am a woman of color, sometimes I can look like I'm part of the system if as a therapist. So they have to learn that your therapist is there for you. They see you and understand you. And even though I am a part of the medical system, I uniquely see you and understand you.
And do you have a sense of how you're navigating that in a way to signal to your clients that you do see them?
For me, is I show up to therapy the same way I do show up to my friends and my family who I'm not treating. I show up in that same way. I laugh and I joke. I lean into our conversations. I use what has worked in the past consistently, and that's just being me. And I let them know in the beginning, this is who I am. We're going to laugh. We're going to joke. I may even cry with you if that's what it seems to be needed in that space and in that moment. And I open myself up to them in a way of, you can ask me anything. If it's going to help you feel comfortable and it's comfortable for me, then I will open up to you just as much if you need it. We have to understand why you need me to open up about it, and we'll discuss the why, and we'll have a conversation that makes you feel comfortable.
You're inviting them to explore in this space, and you're not hiding yourself either. You're
Mm-mm.
open. Yeah. And in addition to answering their questions, you're also helping them say or ask, explore, why is it that they're asking this question? Why is it that you feel you need to know this about me? Or why is it that, you feel you need to know this? And I also love how you couched it. What do we need to help you feel safe in a therapy room?
Yes. Yeah. It's extremely important because that's where I can get the most deep work done. If you are 100% open and comfortable and feel safe that I am going to handle you with the delicateness that your trauma or your whatever it is that you're experiencing needs, then you will open up and go as deep as needed and won't be afraid to cry or won't be afraid to talk about the things that you're even ashamed of.
Now, for therapists who are therapists of color, I think there is an affinity of understanding. And so I think, we can talk about some of your recommendations or your tips
Mhm.
for therapists of color who are working with clients of color. I think there's also the therapists who, and whiteness is a color as well.
Mhm.
That being said, what happens when, let's say, we have a white therapist working with a client of color? Maybe also some of the things that you would recommend or suggest to help clients incrementally foster that safe space, if you have any ideas.
I do have some ideas. I think being curious is a really big part, asking questions, even if they seem about who they are. What is it about you that makes you unique? What are your experiences like? What do you feel in certain spaces? And how asking questions, how can I show up for you in different spaces? What does that look like for them? I ask a lot of questions, and even of when you go to work, what does it feel like at work? Who is in those spaces with you at work? And who makes you feel safe? When you're at home, who makes you feel safe? What are the things that people do that allow you to open up and feel safe? And how can I do that for you? And
Mm,
I also realize that as a Black woman, that my Blackness is not the same as every other person's. So I have to also still acknowledge that we are very different, and I need to know where you come from. What did you experience?
so it's interesting because you're asking the experience of different spaces. And oftentimes, from a privileged perspective, that isn't asked because the assumption is the space is already catered to the client's experience.
Mhm,
And so, for both therapists of color, therapists who are marginalized, who identify with a marginalized group, as well as white therapists, being able to ask about the experience in a different space, such as a workspace, a community space, a gym, a space of like gym, or at
mhm,
home, or
mhm.
that in itself really starts to unravel this positionality
Yes,
of privilege.
yes. And I realized that in certain spaces that I'm privileged as well, that my experience growing up or my experience now as a woman with a master's degree allows me into different spaces that someone else that's coming to me may not be able to get into or has not experienced. So it allows me to remind myself that, okay, we may look the same, but we have different experiences, and I have to get into their experience and leave mine so that I can be with them, at the join with them together. We can be together in this.
The togetherness. Yeah, that's the therapeutic relationship, which is
Mhm.
the glue, the gel. Now, can you tell us a little bit more? So we talked about your recommendation in helping clients slowly walk towards trust. Tell us other examples from your current work and working with clients of color that you like listeners to know about.
I have such an array right now that's very unique for me. I have some older clients, I have some younger clients. I think my listening skills, I use those the most so that I can hear not just what they're saying, but what they're meaning and what they're feeling. And I know if someone comes with a pen and paper, I know I need to have stuff for them. I got to give them something to write down so that because if you come with a pen and paper, you're ready, you're prepared to get some tips and some tools. But if you're coming with tissue in hand and your head is held low, then you're needing validation and you're needing comfort and warmth and you're needing to feel better than you did. So we're not gonna, we're going, every time you say something negative about yourself, I'm gonna remind you something positive so that you are also seeing me do what I want you to do as well. If you think of one thing negative, I need you to have two more positives by the end of not this session, but maybe in 4 or 5 sessions that you can do that, or you can check yourself on it. I have a young girl who's experiencing some really difficult abandonment issues that she still doesn't see are abandonment issues. But we talk about what that feels like. What was the first time you felt that? What happened in that first experience that your body responded this way? And we go back and we talk about it. And I allow her to search the answers. So why do you think that happened? What were you feeling in that moment? And then she's able to come up with it. And then I have an adult who's navigating trauma with her daughter, and she gets to navigate how she's feeling, what she's experiencing, what her parenting, what does it mean to her parenting that her child is having trouble. So I get to just being curious allows a lot of conversation to happen and leaning in when I need to lean in, but then falling back when I have to. Because if they're talking, I need to just hear and listen, no interruptions, no saying, well, I think this is happening. No, I need to hear the whole story. We got to be there for the whole story.
Patience and curiosity.
Hmm.
Yeah. And you also mentioned many therapists operate within a healthcare system environment.
Hmm.
How do you balance out the pressure for time, the pressure for, oh, these notes, we need to get XY documentation.
Hmm.
And, it is very keen to be able to identify the moment when a client comes into your session. You're already acknowledging, wait, this client is ready. They're looking for something, so I need to give them something tangible. No, this client is coming here. They really need a little bit more listening for me to sit back more. You're identifying a keen skill that you have. And I think many therapists have sometimes just don't maybe because of systemic issues, we're sort of like, oh, you're pressed for time. It's
Hmm.
hard for us to practice that. How do you navigate what the system needs you to do versus what the client is asking for in that moment?
Well, my clients also know in the beginning when we talk, there's certain things I'm going to need to ask. I need to know how you're sleeping. I need to know how are you getting up for work on time? I need to know, is your depression keeping you from interacting with people? So I listen, but in the end, they know when time is up. Listen, I got to ask you some few questions. How are you sleeping? How is this going? But sometimes, based on how the conversation is going, I can weave those questions in. So when that happened, how do you think you slept that week? How do you think your interaction with people were? Did you stay home a lot after feeling that? Did you go out? How you been getting to work feeling so down like that? So those are the questions I ask. And then with kids, how are you getting your schoolwork done? Are you able to get your schoolwork done? Is it the anxiety intruding on how you think and how you feel? So I ask those questions in while they're telling me what's going on.
You have it in the back of your mind,
Mm-hmm.
hmm and you're weaving it in. Finding
Mm-hmm.
the right timing
Mm-hmm.
is also important. Yeah. Can you share with us any memorable events and circumstances that influenced how you got into this work?
Preparing for this, I have realized I've had several. The biggest one I think that led me towards this was a third grade teacher who saw that I wasn't in the proper setting and that something probably happened to me but that wasn't in the right setting. So I was put in special classes because I was acting out in school. I was being abused, not at home, but by a family member. But no one asked what happened to her because I wasn't always that way. But she, who had not seen me before I became dysregulated, noticed that this isn't her because she was able to see moments together where I wasn't upset and how I spoke to her and how kind I was and how compassionate I was for others, that she pulled my mom aside and she told my mom, I don't know what happened, but she doesn't belong in this classroom. These other kids do, she doesn't. And she told my mom how to get me out. She almost lost her job for doing that. She risked it all to put me in the space that I truly belonged. And my mother fought for me after getting that information. I remember going to get tested, and we had to have endless meetings. But my mother never let go because Miss Hines supported my mom throughout, and she continued to support me in school. So I always wanted to give back based on that.
Tell me more about other influences, maybe in your experience, that helped you get to where you're at in this clinical work.
In my undergrad years at UNT Dallas with Dr. Tan was an Asian man who identified as a minority, and he expressed his belief in the students he was teaching. Our class was predominantly African American, and he identified that the world did not believe we could read intellectually, we could write intellectually, and we could break down and synthesize material. But his belief in us pushed me to write harder, to dig deeper, and to believe that I could be in the spaces that others can be in. So he would push us. You can be a sociologist. You can identify what's happening in the world. And that's where my thought was, but I didn't want to just sit in the world and write about it. I wanted to make change. But because of him pushing and validating that we have the intellect to do these things, I pushed harder and I wrote stronger and I asked more questions. And because of his relationship with us and being from a different minority group and acknowledging what the world says about us, but still believing in us, made me want to do this work so much more.
Oh, that is powerful to understand the importance of allyship. Yeah.
Yes, it was a beautiful experience because before that, I would only look into my own community, but I know that other communities, there is allyship. And he, in some ways, had a different positionality, but he helped to lift me up into a space connected where he was.
You truly saw the importance of when teachers, as well as people who are in a position of authority,
Mhm.
instructors, are actually advocating for their students. They're
Yes.
advocating for students to be nurtured
Mhm.
in a space and to be able to fit in an environment that they can thrive with the curriculum.
Yes.
Wow, wow. And as a person of color, what were challenges you faced and overcame that you would be willing to share?
It would be, for me, it would be workspaces and microaggression. The microaggression would be not acknowledging me in the space, not acknowledging my authority in a space. Someone just as much as putting my name on my door, my office door, but only doing it when someone you think is more worthy gets an accolade. So, oh, let me get yours up there now because I want to do this one. Things like that. And I also fought really hard for people to see that I was doing a good job so that they could see the imbalance that was happening in this space. And it took me about a year and a half to get through that. And I made adjustments in my own self. Okay, so maybe I could do this differently, or maybe I could be more understanding, or I can adjust how I have conversation. But when I realized I'm the only one in this relationship making adjustments, even other people who I've gone to, look, this is what I'm experiencing, they're trying to talk me out of it. I realize I don't need anyone to validate this experience. It's happening. I feel it in my body. I know that it's happening intellectually. I don't have to have someone say, you know what, you're right, let's fix it. No, I don't. I know it's happening and I have to make a decision on my own. What am I going to do to remove myself from this situation or address it? And I did. I decided I addressed it when it needed to be. And when there's no remedy, then I have to take and put myself in a place that values me in such a way that I don't experience microaggressions.
You're describing a developmental view of experiencing microaggressions. It starts off with, well, let's see what's going on. Let's assess, see if I can make certain adjustments. And I would imagine how tiring that process is,
Yes.
or how it was for you
Mhm,
when this happened. And then to look around and possibly find some allies, and yet that didn't happen.
mhm,
And then experiencing further sense of being let down and not seen, and then finally reaching that precipice, that point where suddenly, hey, this is happening, and you don't have to question that.
mhm.
It, and I think
You
that's the yeah. Go ahead.
you know, it's funny because the same way that I interact with my clients, it's the same way I interacted with this situation. Adjusted. I thought of the other person. What is different about this person? What does this person experience? What's their life like that would make them experience me in such a way or interact with me in such a way? And when I could not find, I don't want to say couldn't find excuses, or when I could no longer make sense of it for myself, then that's when I said, you know what, I don't need anyone to tell me that this is happening. It's happening. And remembering that even though I'm experiencing it doesn't mean that everybody else can see it from their perspective. And that doesn't make me wrong. It just tells me I have to do something to take care of me because no one else is.
Mhm. So, with that, I'm wondering, India, tell me more about your clinical work, that so that way for therapists who may be referring, or clients, mainly therapists, because I think, there's a
Mhm.
referrals like, hey, how do we find other therapists out there that we can refer clients to? Can you tell me more about some of your current work?
Well, I am right now, I'm doing private practice, but I am used to high acuity. So I am comfortable with clients that struggle with wanting to be alive. I am comfortable with clients that self harm. I am comfortable with clients that are angry and disruptive, loud, crying. I am comfortable in those spaces. A kiddo tells me that they've cut themselves, or an adult. Okay, well, what were you feeling at the time? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about what was your body feeling? What was your mind thinking through? Not making them feel bad at all about what they did. And I also love to teach because there is a brain connection to self harming. You cut and your body releases endorphins and painkillers. And the same painkiller that numbs that cut is the same one that is making you feel better, less sad, less angry. Now let's find one that doesn't damage your body.
Ooh, that is important. Find one
Mm-hmm.
that does not damage your body. Ooh, I
Mm-hmm.
love this message. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very consistent with also what you are modeling, which is the experience of different microaggressions. It's like,
Yeah.
how do I not put myself in spaces where it is damaging my body?
Mm-hmm.
Mm, mm,
Mm-hmm.
all right. So, India, I'm also curious about this. What does it mean for you to be a Black therapist?
Oh, being a Black therapist, it means so much to me. Um, it means that I have gotten to a space where I can help people that look like me, people that are uncomfortable like I was uncomfortable. I can encourage like I needed encouragement, and I can help elevate people that look like me and don't look like me. I can be an example to people who don't look like me of what the true kindness and heart of my people looks like. You get an introduction to who we are through me, because in my interactions with people, I am genuinely me. And I'll tell a person when I'm uncomfortable, that makes me a little uncomfortable. We could talk about why, and we don't have to agree, but I'm still going to hold you in my heart in the same capacity.
Mm,
Being a Black therapist, not only licensed and having passed the exams, graduated with high grades, growing up in a single household, I beat the statistical odds, the what everyone says should have been. So I'm an example of what can be. I think I'm not the exception. I think I am the average. Um, if you look deep enough in our culture and at us, you will see that we are striving, when people were fighting to do different things. And we, even though the world right now is crazy, I am still moving and shaking and doing what I need to do to elevate despite what I might feel, because I know the bigger picture is people,
wow,
community, everything.
that's so important. And
Hmm.
I hope people also hear that from today's episode, because we are in Black History Month. We see the stuff that is happening.
Hmm.
And what's that? What's the big picture?
Yeah.
And you hit it. It's not just one person, it's people.
Yes. It's people, it's everybody. And it's not just one group, it's every group. It's all of us together trying to make this right and get through it with all the baggage that we have.
Yeah. India, how do we support you?
How do we support me? Wow. That's a question, isn't it? Um, I honestly, this work makes is fulfilling for me. I am not, I'm not, I want to make money, don't get me wrong, but I'm not in it for it. I'm in it for what I feel when a client says, I feel better. I think I can go back to work. I think I can get my schoolwork done. I think I can have a conversation with my mom and not get distressed and still walk away feeling good. So, how you can support me is helping me to find ways to get people in this office and get the work done that I know I was created to do,
Yeah.
to
Well,
support people when they're vulnerable and show them that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to feel hurt and pain, but we got to get through it and build tools so that we don't stay in that space, to help people grow and elevate.
India, we'll definitely put your contact information on our show notes so we can
Mhm.
have folks reach out to you. Thank you so much for being on our podcast. Any final thoughts or message?
Final thoughts and messages. Whew. I guess for the therapist, it would be to trust what you're experiencing in the therapy room.
Say more about that.
Sometimes in the beginning, I would look at my client and say, God, I wish I could hug you right now. But that was a message to me that I had to tell them that they were worthy and that they were valuable and that their experience was valid. And sometimes I would even say, I wish I could hug you right now because I can see that you need it. Trust it. So you may not be able to act on it. Dig into what can I do? What can I do for you right now? What would be the ultimate thing for you right now to help you to feel better? So that they learn and you learn at the
Hmm.
exact same time.
Learning from each other, you're learning to also
Mhm.
hone in
Yes,
what you're
your
recognizing.
attunement with your
Yeah,
client.
yeah.
Hone in on your attunement with your client. And then you get to trust yourself, and then you're building relationship with your clients as well. Yeah, I think that's one. And allow silence. Allow silence to happen at times when it needs to. Because sometimes silence, you just sitting in that space with them while they're thinking about what they just said to you can be so rewarding for them and so eye-opening for them. It may be uncomfortable for you at first, but it's worth the wait. And I think for clients, any client that or person that is listening to this who is thinking about seeking therapy, I would say go for it because it is the ultimate self-care. It is not just going to the gym. It's just like going to the gym, right? So you go to the gym to get your body right. You go and you go to the doctor to get your checkups yearly. Go to get therapy to see what things are burdening you, to open up to someone in a safe space to release tension, trauma, even if it's not trauma, it's struggles. I'm not sleeping at night. Why am I not sleeping? So we can figure out what it is so that you can get rest again.
All right, India. Thank you so much for your work, your
Thank you.
message, and you're so calm. Oh my gosh.
Am I?
So calm. What a calming presence. I just want to say
Thank
that, you know.
you. Thank you.
Um, will definitely put your contact information and then have folks they can reach out to you. Is that okay? And you have a website?
That is good. I have a website. I'm on Headway as well. But I want to also thank you because the platform that you are creating helps me do what I do, and it helps people who are looking for services. Because we have savvy people out there. They may not have gone to get degrees and all that, but they are savvy to go on the internet and search out areas to find what they're looking for.
Yes.
So you've created a space for us therapists to get on, and people can find us in obscure places anywhere.
Yep.
Thank you.
You bet. You bet. Well, India, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
A huge thank you to our listeners. If you enjoyed this episode, please share and subscribe to People of Color in Psychology. You can also support us by registering for continuing education courses or making a one-time donation on the Multicultural Counseling Institute's website. Their feedback is important to us, so feel free to send an email, a message on LinkedIn, or leave a voice message on our website. Until next time, this is your host, Jack Sun.